Earlier this year, in the early hours of January 3, 2026, the capital of Venezuela became the center of the world's attention. A U.S. military operation captured President Nicolás Maduro and his wife directly from his residence in Caracas, ending more than a decade of his rule and setting off one of the most dramatic political shifts Latin America has seen in years. As we record this, the political situation in Venezuela is still evolving day by day. So if you're watching this sometime after we published it, we'd recommend checking the latest news for the most current details. But today, we're not here to analyze the politics, we're here to show you the real Caracas, a city with an extraordinary history, striking geography, and a culture that has survived booms, crises, and everything in between. Before we continue, if you enjoy this kind of content, give the video a like and subscribe with the bell turned on so you never miss any of the journeys we have planned for you. 1. A capital squeezed into a narrow valley between mountains and the sea. Caracas sits in a long, narrow valley nestled between the Avila mountain range to the north and a series of hills to the south, a geography that has shaped nearly every aspect of the city's growth. Because there's so little flat land available, the city has expanded upward, both literally, with high-rise buildings packed tightly together, and vertically up the surrounding hillsides, where informal neighborhoods climb steeply toward the mountains, creating one of the most visually dramatic urban skylines in all of South America. 2. A mountain that functions as the city's natural lungs and its most iconic backdrop. El Avila, officially known as Guarayira Repano National Park, rises dramatically along the entire northern edge of Caracas, separating the city from the Caribbean coast just a few miles away. Covered in dense tropical forest, the mountain is protected as a national park and offers hiking trails used daily by thousands of residents, along with a historic cable car, the Teleférico, that carries visitors from the city up to the summit, and in clear weather all the way down the other side to the beach town of Macuto on the coast. 3. A cable car project originally built during a military dictatorship and rebuilt decades later by a socialist government. The original Caracas cable car opened in 1956 under the government of Marcos Pérez Jiménez, a military dictator who oversaw a period of massive public works construction fueled by oil wealth. The system eventually fell into disrepair and closed for years until it was renovated and reopened in 2010 under the government of Hugo Chavez, making it one of the rare pieces of infrastructure in the city embraced, at different points, by two governments with almost completely opposite ideologies. 4. The birthplace of the man who liberated a third of a continent. Caracas is the birthplace of Simón Bolívar, the military and political leader who led independence movements across what are today Venezuela, Colombia, Ecuador, Panama, Peru, and Bolivia, the last of which is named directly after him. Bolívar's childhood home in the historic center of Caracas has been preserved as a museum, and his image and legacy are woven into nearly every aspect of Venezuelan civic life, from the national currency, the Bolívar, to the ideology known as Bolivarianism that shaped the country's politics for the past several decades. 5. A city whose modern layout was radically transformed almost overnight by oil wealth. Until the early 20th century, Caracas was a relatively modest colonial city. Everything changed with the discovery and exploitation of massive oil reserves, which transformed Venezuela into one of the wealthiest nations in Latin America for several decades and funded an enormous wave of modernization in the capital. Wide boulevards, modernist government buildings, universities, and high-rise towers built rapidly between the 1950s and 1970s, giving central Caracas an architectural character that, in some neighborhoods, still looks strikingly different from most other Latin American capitals. 6. A university campus recognized by UNESCO as a masterpiece of modern design. The Central University of Venezuela's main campus in Caracas, designed largely by architect Carlos Raúl Villanueva, was declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 2000, one of the few modernist university campuses in the world to receive that recognition. The campus integrates large-scale artwork by internationally renowned artists directly into its buildings and open spaces, including murals and sculptures, making it as much an open-air art museum as a functioning university. 7. One of the tallest buildings in the world that was left unfinished for decades and became a symbol of urban crisis. The Centro Financiero con Finanzas, popularly known as the Tower of David, is a nearly 45-story skyscraper in downtown Caracas, whose construction stopped after the death of its financial backer and the country's banking crisis in the early 1990s. For years, the abandoned tower was informally occupied by thousands of squatters who built makeshift homes inside the unfinished structure, complete with informal shops and utilities, making international headlines as one of the most striking examples of vertical informal settlement anywhere in the world, before residents were eventually relocated years later. 8. A barrio that is one of the largest informal settlements in all of Latin America. Petare in eastern Caracas is widely considered one of the largest and most densely populated informal settlements in Latin America, home to several 100,000 residents living across a steep hillside packed with self-built homes. Despite facing serious challenges with infrastructure and security, Petare also has a vibrant community life, with local musicians, artists, and small businesses that have gained increasing recognition, including several youth orchestras that have toured internationally, drawing on Venezuela's strong tradition of musical education. 9. A country with one of the most celebrated classical music education systems in the world. Venezuela is home to El Sistema, a publicly funded network of youth orchestras and music schools founded in 1975, which has become internationally famous for providing free classical music training to children from low-income communities across the country, many of them in and around Caracas. The program's most famous graduate, conductor Gustavo Dudamel, went on to lead major orchestras internationally, and El Sistema has been studied and partially replicated by music education programs in dozens of other countries. 10. A national obsession with beauty pageants that has produced an unusual number of world title holders. Venezuela has won the Miss Universe, Miss World, and Miss International titles more times than almost any other country, and Caracas is the epicenter of the country's elaborate pageant training industry, with specialized academies coaching contestants in everything from posture to public speaking. Winning a major international pageant is treated as a genuine national event, with victories celebrated with the same intensity many countries reserve for major sporting championships. 11. A love of baseball that runs deeper than almost anywhere else in Latin America outside the Caribbean's traditional baseball nations. Unlike most of South America, where soccer dominates completely, Venezuela has a deep and passionate baseball culture, and Caracas is home to some of the country's most storied professional teams. Venezuela has sent a remarkable number of players to Major League Baseball in the United States over the decades, and Winter League games in Caracas regularly draw passionate, packed crowds, especially during the high-stakes rivalry games between the capital's two biggest clubs. 12. A currency crisis so severe it required removing multiple zeros from the national currency, more than once. Venezuela experienced one of the most extreme hyperinflation episodes in modern economic history during the 2010s, with inflation at various points estimated in the millions of percent annually. To cope with numbers that had become almost unmanageable, the government redenominated the currency on more than one occasion, literally slashing zeros off the bolivar, first in 2008 and again in 2018, and the effects of that economic collapse are still deeply felt across Caracas today, even as the political situation continues to shift. 13. One of the largest displacement crises in the world over the past decade, driven by the economic collapse, political instability, and shortages of food, medicine, and basic services. More than 7 million Venezuelans left the country over the past decade, according to United Nations estimates, one of the largest displacement crises anywhere in the world during that period, comparable in scale to some of the major refugee crises tied to armed conflict, despite Venezuela not being at war. Many families in Caracas today have close relatives scattered across Colombia, Peru, Chile, Spain, and the United States, a reality that has reshaped the social fabric of the city over the past several years. 14. A historic city center with colonial roots stretching back nearly 500 years. Caracas was founded in 1567 by Spanish conquistador Diego de Losada, and although most of the city's original colonial architecture was gradually replaced by modern development over the 20th century, the historic core around Plaza Bolívar still preserves several colonial-era buildings, including the Caracas Cathedral, where members of Simón Bolívar's family are buried, offering a small but significant window into the city's deep colonial past. 15. A cultural complex considered one of the most important in Latin America for the performing arts. The Teresa Carreño Cultural Complex, opened in 1983 and named after a celebrated Venezuelan pianist, is one of the largest and most technically sophisticated performing arts centers in Latin America, hosting opera, ballet, and orchestral performances in a building whose acoustic design was specifically engineered to rival some of the finest concert halls in the world. 16. A metro system built with foreign engineering expertise during the oil boom years. The Caracas Metro opened in 1983, built with significant involvement from French engineering firms during a period when Venezuela's oil wealth allowed the country to invest heavily in major infrastructure projects. Despite years of underinvestment and maintenance challenges in more recent decades, the metro remains a critical transportation lifeline for millions of daily commuters navigating a city where surface traffic, given the narrow valley geography, can become extremely congested. 17. A national holiday built entirely around waistline-friendly Christmas nostalgia, roller skates included. In a tradition unique to Caracas, many residents in certain neighborhoods traditionally roller skate to early morning Christmas Mass in the days leading up to December 25th, a custom so beloved that some streets are closed to car traffic specifically to allow skaters safe passage. According to local legend, the tradition became so popular decades ago that children would tie strings to their big toes and dangle them out apartment windows overnight, allowing skating friends on the street below to give a tug and wake them up in time for the early service. 18. A tropical city with a climate more temperate than most people expect for a Caribbean-adjacent capital. Despite Venezuela's location near the equator, Caracas sits at an elevation of roughly 3,000 feet above sea level, giving it a notably milder climate than the sweltering Caribbean coast just a short drive away. Average temperatures throughout the year hover comfortably in the mid-70s Fahrenheit, a geographic quirk that surprises many first-time visitors expecting the same intense heat found along Venezuela's nearby beaches. 19. One of the largest urban parks in the world, right inside the city itself. In addition to the Avila Mountain Park bordering the city, Caracas is also home to Parque del Este, one of the largest and most heavily used urban parks in Latin America, originally designed by Brazilian landscape architect Roberto Burle Marx. The park includes a planetarium, a small zoo, and even a full-scale replica of Christopher Columbus's ship, the Santa Maria, reflecting the ambitious, expansive style of urban planning that characterized Caracas during its mid-century oil boom years. 20. A skyline shaped by decades of both extraordinary wealth and extraordinary crisis, standing side by side. Perhaps nowhere is Caracas's dramatic economic history more visible than in its own skyline. Gleaming modernist towers built during the boom decades stand today alongside buildings left incomplete during economic collapse. Informal settlements climbing hillsides just blocks from luxury apartment towers. a visual record of a city that has swung between some of the highest highs and lowest lows of any capital in the Western Hemisphere over the past 70 years. 21. A long and complicated relationship with oil that shaped nearly everything about the country's modern identity. Venezuela holds the largest proven oil reserves of any country in the world, even more than Saudi Arabia. And for decades, that resource funded much of Caracas's development, its universities, its infrastructure, its cultural institutions. But dependence on a single volatile commodity also left the economy extremely vulnerable to falling oil prices, mismanagement, and international sanctions in more recent years, a vulnerability that played a significant role in the economic collapse that eventually reshaped the entire country, including the political events that led directly to the events of January 2026. 22. A city where informal street food culture thrives despite, or perhaps because of, years of economic hardship. Arepas, thick round cornmeal patties split open and filled with cheese, meat, beans, or seafood, are as central to daily life in Caracas as bread is elsewhere, sold everywhere from dedicated arepa restaurants to small street carts. During the toughest years of the economic crisis, resourceful vendors adapted recipes and ingredients constantly to keep prices manageable, and the arepa's enduring popularity through even the most difficult years has made it something of an unofficial symbol of everyday resilience in the capital. 23. A television and telenovela industry that once made Caracas a major entertainment hub for the entire Spanish-speaking world. During the latter half of the 20th century, Venezuelan television networks based in Caracas became major regional powerhouses in producing telenovelas, Spanish-language soap operas exported and broadcast across Latin America, Spain, and beyond. Although the industry has diminished considerably in recent decades, largely due to the country's political and economic instability, Caracas-trained actors, writers, and producers went on to have significant influence across the broader Latin American entertainment industry. 24. A public transportation innovation exported to cities facing similar hillside informal settlement challenges. In 2010, Caracas opened the Metro Cable, an aerial cable car system specifically designed to connect the steep, densely populated hillside barrios, including sections of Petare, to the formal metro system below, dramatically cutting commute times for residents who previously faced long, difficult walks down and up the hillsides every day. The project drew inspiration from a similar system pioneered in Medellin, Colombia, and has itself become a reference point studied by urban planners in other Latin American cities facing comparable geographic and social challenges. 25. A place where the political transition following Maduro's removal is still actively being written. In the aftermath of the January 2026 operation, Venezuela's Supreme Court moved to have the vice president assume presidential powers, while opposition figures who many international observers consider the legitimate winners of the country's disputed 2024 election have pushed for a real democratic transition. The United States has said it intends to play a leading role in the country's near-term governance and its oil sector, a level of direct involvement that has drawn both support and sharp criticism from different countries and legal experts around the world. Whatever direction Venezuela's politics take from here, Caracas itself, its mountains, its music, its history, and its people will remain long after this particular chapter closes. And so we reach the end of this journey through Caracas, a city squeezed dramatically between a mountain and a valley, shaped by extraordinary oil wealth, deep economic crisis, and now a political transition still being written in real time. A city that gave the world Simón Bolívar and Gustavo Dudamel, that skates to Christmas Mass and floats above its own hillside neighborhoods on cable cars. And that has shown, through every boom and every crisis, a resilience that goes far deeper than any single headline. If you made it this far, you now know Caracas far better than the vast majority of people who only see it through news coverage of its politics. If you enjoyed this video, leave us a like, subscribe with the bell turned on, and tell us in the comments what surprised you the most about everything you just discovered. See you on the next journey.